Want to know if your Korean skills are improving and what your real learning level is? Get your language skills assessed with our free level assessment test. Just click the link in the description and sign up for a free lifetime account to get assessed.
Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then, repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say hello? 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. And how to say nice to meet you. 반갑습니다. 반갑습니다. Do you remember how to say I? 저. And how to say as for me. 저는. Do you remember how Mark Murray says his name? 모리스 마크. And how Mark Murray says, I'm Mark Maurice. 저는 모리스 마크입니다. 저는 모리스 마크입니다. Do you remember how Mark Murray says, Hello, I'm Mark Maurice. Nice to meet you.
안녕하세요. 저는 모리스 마크입니다. 반갑습니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 모리스 마크입니다. 반갑습니다. And do you remember how Mingyu Moon says, Hello, I'm Mingyu Moon. Nice to meet you.
안녕하세요. 저는 문민규입니다. 반갑습니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 문민규입니다. 반갑습니다.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
평창,
Pyeongchang,
평창, 평창. 런던,
London,
런던, 런던. 서울,
Seoul,
서울, 서울.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then, repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say New York? New York. New York. And how to say from New York. 뉴욕에서. 뉴욕에서. Do you remember how Mark says, I'm from New York?
뉴욕에서 왔어요.
뉴욕에서 왔어요. Do you remember how to say where? 어디, 어디. And how Mingyu-moon addresses Mark. 마크 씨, 마크 씨. Do you remember how Mingyu asks Mark, "Where are you from?"
마크 씨는 어디에서 왔어요?
마크 씨는 어디에서 왔어요? Do you remember how to say London? 런던, 런던. And how to say Seattle? 시애틀, 시애틀. Do you remember how to say Seoul? 서울, 서울.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
선생님,
Teacher,
선생님, 선생님. 엔지니어,
engineer,
엔지니어, 엔지니어. 간호사,
nurse,
간호사, 간호사. 의사,
doctor,
의사, 의사. 바리스타,
barista,
바리스타, 바리스타.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say investor? 투자가, 투자가. And how Mingyu-moon says, I am an investor. 투자가예요. 투자가예요. Do you remember how to say student? 학생, 학생. And how Mingyu-moon says, I'm not a student. 학생이 아니에요. 학생이 아니에요. Do you remember how to say no? 아니요. 아니요. Do you remember how Mingyu-moon says, no, I'm not a student. I am an investor.
아니요. 학생이 아니에요. 투자가예요.
아니요. 학생이 아니에요. 투자가예요. Do you remember how Mark Morris asks, are you a student? Remember, Mark uses formal Korean.
학생이에요?
학생이에요? Do you remember the word for teacher? 선생님, 선생님. And the word for engineer, engineer, engineer.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say phone number? 전화번호, 전화번호. And how to say my phone number? 제 전화번호, 제 전화번호. Do you remember how to say as for my phone number? 제 전화번호는, 제 전화번호는. Now, do you remember how Mark says, my phone number is 010-0123-4567?
제 전화번호는 010-0123-4567이에요.
제 전화번호는 010-0123-4567이에요. Do you remember the polite informal phrase meaning what is it? 뭐예요? 뭐예요? Do you remember 민규's request? What's your phone number?
전화번호가 뭐예요?
전화번호가 뭐예요?
Let's review the key vocabulary.
오빠,
Older brother, as said by younger sisters.
오빠, 오빠. 언니,
Older sister, as used by younger sisters.
언니, 언니. 형,
Older brother, as used by younger brothers.
형, 형. 누나,
Older sister, as used by younger brothers.
누나, 누나. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say yes? 네, 네. And how to say me? 저, 저. Do you remember how Ben says younger sister? 여동생, 여동생. And how to say mother? 어머니, 어머니. Do you remember how to say father? 아버지, 아버지. Do you remember how Ben says, yes, this is my father, mother, younger sister, and me?
네. 아버지, 어머니, 여동생, 저예요.
네. 아버지, 어머니, 여동생, 저예요. Do you remember how to say family? 가족, 가족. And how Colin addresses Ben? 벤 씨, 벤 씨. Do you remember how to say Ben's family? 벤 씨의 가족, 벤 씨의 가족. And do you remember how Colin asks, "Is this your family, Ben?"
벤 씨의 가족이에요?
벤 씨의 가족이에요? Do you remember how a younger sister says older brother? 오빠, 오빠. And how a younger sister says older sister? 언니, 언니. Do you remember how a younger brother says older sister? 누나, 누나.
Did you take your free level assessment yet? Here's an extra bonus resource you'll get when you take the assessment. When you receive your result and learning level, you also unlock a free language course for your specific level, so you can start learning and level up your language skills. Just click the link in the description to get access.
Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say yes? 네, 네. And how to say me? 저, 저. Do you remember how to say daughter? 딸, 딸. And how to say son? 아들, 아들. Do you remember how to say husband? 남편, 남편. Do you remember how Karen says, "Yes, this is my husband, son, daughter, and me"?
네. 남편, 아들, 딸, 저예요.
네, 남편, 아들, 딸, 저예요. Do you remember how to say family? 가족, 가족. And how to say Karen's name in Korean? Karen, Karen. Do you remember how the teacher addresses Karen? 카렌 씨, 카렌 씨. Do you remember how 선영 asks, "Is this your family, Karen?"
카렌 씨 가족이에요?
카렌 씨 가족이에요? Do Do you remember the word for wife? 아내, 아내. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember the honorific suffix used to address someone of higher social status? 님, 님. And how to address a teacher? 선생님, 선생님. Do you remember the polite and most common way to say hello? 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. Do you remember how Mark says, hello, teacher?
선생님, 안녕하세요.
선생님, 안녕하세요. Do you remember how to say Mark in Korean? 마크, 마크. And how the teacher addresses Mark? 마크 씨, 마크 씨. Do you remember how the teacher says, hello, Mark?
마크 씨, 안녕하세요.
마크 씨, 안녕하세요. Do you remember the informal way to say hi? 안녕, 안녕. And how the teacher says, hi, Ben.
벤, 안녕.
벤, 안녕. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember the formal way to say goodbye to someone leaving? Literally, go in peace. 안녕히 가세요. 안녕히 가세요. Do you remember the formal way to say goodbye to someone staying? Literally, stay in peace. 안녕히 계세요. 안녕히 계세요. Do you remember the informal way to say bye to someone leaving? Literally, go well. 잘 가. 잘 가. Do you remember the informal way to say bye to someone staying? Literally, stay well. 잘 있어. 잘 있어. Do you remember the informal general way to say bye? 안녕. 안녕. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how Ben Morris says, "Excuse me"?
저기요.
저기요. and how the passenger says yes?
네?
네? Do you remember how to say thank you? 감사합니다. 감사합니다. And how to say not at all? 아니에요. 아니에요. Do you remember how the passenger says, I'm sorry?
죄송합니다.
죄송합니다. And how Ben says, it's alright.
괜찮아요.
괜찮아요.
Let's review the key words and phrases.
아주,
Is an adverb meaning very.
아주. 안녕하세요.
Hello.
안녕하세요.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember the word for well? 잘, 잘. Do you remember how Mark asks, how have you been?
잘 지냈어요?
잘 지냈어요? Do you remember how to say yes? 네, 네. Do you remember how 상훈송 says, yes, I've been well?
네, 잘 지냈어요.
네, 잘 지냈어요. Do you remember the informal way to ask, how have you been? 잘 지냈어. 잘 지냈어. And how to say hello? 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요.
Did you take your free level assessment yet? Here's an extra bonus resource you'll get when you take the assessment. When you receive your result and learning level, you also unlock a free language course for your specific level, so you can start learning and level up your language skills. Just click the link in the description to get access.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
선선하다,
To be cool, as in the temperature.
선선하다, 선선하다. 선선하죠?
Cool, right?
선선하죠? 선선하죠? 따뜻하다,
Warm.
따뜻하다, 따뜻하다. 따뜻하죠?
Warm, right?
따뜻하죠? 따뜻하죠? 날씨,
Weather.
날씨, 날씨. 좋다,
Nice.
좋다, 좋다.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say today? 오늘. 오늘. Do you remember how Karen says, it's hot today, right?
오늘 덥죠?
오늘 덥죠? Do you remember how to say yes? 네. 네. Do you remember how Dayon Park says, yes, that's right?
네, 그렇네요.
네, 그렇네요. Do you remember how to say cold, right? 춥죠? 춥죠? And how to say weather? 날씨, 날씨. Do you remember how to say nice, right? 좋죠? 좋죠?
Let's review the key vocabulary.
눈,
Snow,
눈, 눈. 막다,
to be clear,
막다, 막다. 맑아요,
is sunny,
맑아요, 맑아요. 흐리다,
to be cloudy,
흐리다, 흐리다. 흐려요,
it's cloudy,
흐려요, 흐려요.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say rain? 비, 비. And the subject marking particle that follows words ending in vowels? 가, 가. Do you remember how Karen Morris says it's raining?
비가 와요,
비가 와요. Do you remember how to say weather? 날씨, 날씨. Do you remember how In asks, how's the weather?
날씨 어때요?
날씨 어때요? Do you remember the word meaning to be clear? 막다, 막다. And the informal polite spoken way to say it's sunny? 맑아요, 맑아요. Do you remember how to say snow? 눈, 눈.
적어주세요.
Please write it down.
적어주세요. 적어주세요. 잘 모르겠어요.
I don't understand.
잘 모르겠어요. 잘 모르겠어요.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say, please say it? 말해주세요. 말해주세요. And how to say one more time? 한 번 더. 한 번 더. Do you remember how to say sorry, but? 죄송하지만. 죄송하지만. Do you remember how Sasha says, sorry, but please say one more time?
죄송하지만 한 번 더 말해 주세요.
죄송하지만 한 번 더 말해주세요. Do you remember how to say slowly? 천천히. 천천히. Do you remember how Sasha says, please say it slowly?
천천히 말해 주세요.
천천히 말해주세요. Do you remember how to say hello? 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. And how 동준조 introduces himself?
안녕하세요. 저는 조도준이에요.
안녕하세요. 저는 조도준이에요. Do you remember how to say, please write it down? 적어주세요. 적어주세요.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
펜,
Pen,
펜, 펜. 젓가락,
chopsticks,
젓가락, 젓가락. 연필,
pencil,
연필, 연필. 이거,
this,
이거, 이거. 저거,
that, over there.
저거, 저거.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say Korean as in the language? 한국어, 한국어. And how to say in Korean? 한국어로. 한국어로. Do you remember how to say how do you say? 어떻게 말해요? 어떻게 말해요? Do you remember how Ben says, how do you say textbook in Korean?
한국어로 텍스트북 어떻게 말해요?
한국어로 textbook 어떻게 말해요? Do you remember how to say textbook? 교과서 교과서 Do you remember how 가은 김 says it's textbook?
교과서예요.
교과서예요. Do you remember how to say this? 이거 이거
Let's review the key words.
물,
Water,
물, 물. 바나나,
banana,
바나나, 바나나. 저거,
that over there.
저거, 저거. 이거,
This,
이거, 이거.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say give me please? 주세요. 주세요. Do you remember how Ben says that please?
그거 주세요.
그거 주세요. Do you remember how to say here? 여기, 여기. And do you remember how the clerk says, here you are?
여기 있습니다.
여기 있습니다. Do you remember how to say water? 물, 물. And how to say banana? banana, banana. Do you remember how to say this? 이거, 이거.
Did you take your free level assessment yet? Here's an extra bonus resource you'll get when you take the assessment. When you receive your result and learning level, you also unlock a free language course for your specific level, so you can start learning and level up your language skills. Just click the link in the description to get access.
Let's review the key words.
우유,
Milk,
우유, 우유. 사과,
apple,
사과, 사과. 후추,
pepper,
후추, 후추. 설탕,
sugar,
설탕, 설탕.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say salt? 소금, 소금. And how to say excuse me? 저기요, 저기요. Do you remember how Sasha Morris asks, "Excuse me, do you have any salt?"
저기요, 소금 있어요?
저기요, 소금 있어요? Do you remember how to say yes? 네, 네. And how to say here? 여기, 여기. Do you remember how the clerk says, "Yes, it's here"?
네, 여기 있어요.
네, 여기 있어요. Do you remember how to say apple? 사과, 사과. And how to say sugar? 설탕, 설탕. Do you remember how to say milk? 우유, 우유.
Let's review the key words.
커피,
Coffee,
커피, 커피. 케이크,
cake,
케이크, 케이크. 딸기,
strawberry,
딸기, 딸기. 그거,
that,
그거, 그거.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say how much? 얼마, 얼마. And how to say this? 이거, 이거. Do you remember how Ben Morris asks, "How much is this?"
이거 얼마예요?
이거 얼마예요? Do you remember how to say one? One. One. And how to say 100? 백. 백. Do you remember how to say 500? 500. 500. And how to say 1,500? 1,500. 1,500. Do you remember how the clerk says it's 1,500 won?
(1,500원입니다)
1,500원입니다. Do you remember how to say coffee? 커피, 커피. And how to say strawberry? 딸기, 딸기. Do you remember how to say that? 그거, 그거.
Let's review the new words.
메뉴,
Menu,
메뉴, 메뉴. 이거,
this,
이거, 이거. 계산서,
check,
계산서, 계산서.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say excuse me? 저기요. 저기요. And how to say water? 물, 물. Do you remember how Mark Morris says, "Excuse me, water please"?
저기요, 물 주세요.
저기요, 물 주세요. Do you remember how to say okay? 네, 네. Do you remember how the waiter says, "Okay, understood"?
네, 알겠습니다.
네, 알겠습니다. Do you remember how to say check? 계산서, 계산서. And how to say menu? menu, menu. Do you remember how to say this? 이거, 이거.
Let's review the new words.
3,
3,
3, 3. 4,
4,
4, 4. 1,
1,
1, 1.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say please? 주세요. 주세요. And the counter for serving? 인분, 인분. Do you remember how to say this? 이거, 이거. Do you remember how Karen Morris says, 2 of these, please?
이거 2인분 주세요.
이거 2인분 주세요. Do you remember how to say to order? 주문하다, 주문하다. Do you remember how the waiter says, "Are you ready to order?"
주문하시겠어요?
주문하시겠어요? Do you remember how to say one in Sino-Korean numbers? 1, 1. And how to say 3? 3, 3. And how to say 4? 4, 4. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say .com? .com, .com. And how to say inolang.com? 이노랭.com, 이노랭.com. Do you remember how to say @sign? 골뱅이, 골뱅이. And how to spell Karen? K-A-R-E-N, K-A-R-E-N. Do you remember how to say email address? 이메일 주소, 이메일 주소. And how to say my email address? 제 이메일 주소, 제 이메일 주소. Do you remember how to say as for my email address? 제 이메일 주소는, 제 이메일 주소는. Do you remember how Karen says, my email address is karen@inolang.com?
제 이메일 주소는 karen@inolang.com이에요.
제 이메일 주소는 karen@inolang.com이에요. Do you remember the polite phrase meaning, what is it? 어떻게 되세요? 어떻게 되세요? Do you remember how the clerk says, "What's your email address?"
이메일 주소가 어떻게 되세요?
이메일 주소가 어떻게 되세요?
Let's review the new words.
영국인,
British person,
영국인, 영국인. 호주인,
Australian person,
호주인, 호주인. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say Korea? 한국, 한국. And how to say Korean, as in a Korean person? 한국인, 한국인. Do you remember how to say I? 저, 저. And how to say as for me? 저는, 저는. Do you remember how to say yes? 네, 네. Do you remember how Miss Ju says, "Yes, I'm Korean"?
네, 저는 한국인이에요.
네, 저는 한국인이에요. Do you remember how Miss Yu asks, "Are you Korean?"
한국인이에요?
한국인이에요? Do you remember how to say American, as in a person from the United States of America? 미국인, 미국인. And how to say British, as in a British person? 영국인, 영국인. Do you remember how to say Australian, as in an Australian person? 호주인, 호주인. And how to say no? 아니요, 아니요.
Let's review the new words.
야구,
Baseball,
야구, 야구. 여행,
traveling,
여행, 여행. 수영,
swimming,
수영, 수영. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say fishing? 낚시, 낚시. And how to say hobby? 취미, 취미. Do you remember how to say my hobby? 제 취미, 제 취미. And how to say as for my hobby? 제 취미는, 제 취미는. Do you remember how Noah Yu says, my hobby is fishing?
제 취미는 낚시예요.
제 취미는 낚시예요. Do you remember how to say what? 뭐, 뭐. Do you remember the subject marking particle that follows words ending in vowels? 가, 가. Do you remember how 도준조 asks, what's your hobby?
취미가 뭐예요?
취미가 뭐예요? Do you remember how to say baseball? 야구, 야구. And how to say traveling? 여행, 여행. Do you remember how to say swimming? 수영, 수영.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can Do course.